and welcome to Weekly News Highlights. Let's begin with key words that made headlines this week. U.S. President Donald Trump has sent a letter to South Korea notifying that 25% tariffs will be imposed starting August 1st, delaying the deadline once again. The Bank of Korea has decided to hold its interest rate steady at 2.5% amid soaring housing prices in Seoul and an increase in household debt. Sweltering summer heat continues in South Korea, with some areas seeing daytime temperature go up to 40 degrees Celsius, with the hottest ever early July day recorded in more than 100 years. The United States has delayed the imposition of reciprocal tariffs from this week until August 1st, allowing tariff negotiations to continue. Trump still threatened to impose 25% tariffs on South Korea, while also leaving open the possibility of an adjustment to the tariff rate. Our Jung reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Monday, extending the effective date for reciprocal tariffs to August 1st, pushing back the previous July 9th deadline. Trump outlined the rates in letters to the leaders of countries, including South Korea and Japan, via Truth Social earlier on Monday, with the rates ranging from 25% to 40%. Trump originally unveiled the tariff in April, but granted a 90-day reprieve so that countries could strike trade agreements.
I have the signed letters that went out to both South Korea and Japan today, and there will be approximately 12 other countries that will receive notifications and letters directly from the President of the United States.
In the letter, Trump threatened to impose 25% duties on South Korea, with higher duties for items deemed to have been transshipped through Korea from other countries. Trump stated that the relationship between Seoul and Washington has been, quote, far from reciprocal. He warned that any retaliatory tariff from Seoul would result in an additional surcharge on top of the 25%. However, Trump did leave open the possibility of an adjustment to the tariff rate for South Korea. The South Korean government views Trump's letter as an effective extension of the pause on new duties for Korean products. Seoul has been actively working to avoid or minimize the impact of these steep levies, as well as other tariffs on products such as automobiles, steel, and aluminum. According to Reuters, these reciprocal tariffs are separate from the sector-specific levies. In a press release, Seoul's trade ministry stated that South Korea will seek to address the trade deficit issue, a major concern of the U.S., by improving domestic rules and regulations. It also affirmed its commitment to creating opportunities in core industries through the two countries' partnership for manufacturing renaissance. 문지영, Arirang News.
Following Trump's announcement regarding his new tariffs timeline, South Korea's presidential office convened a response meeting. Our top office correspondent Song Yujin reports.
Regarding U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to impose 25% tariffs on South Korean imports from August 1st, the presidential office says it sees value in having earned more time.
Given how little time there has been after the new administration was launched, we see it as having avoided the worst-case scenario of tariffs going up. We've now secured extra time for negotiations, and National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak is continuing high-level talks in the U.S.
In response, Presidential Chief of Policy Kim Yong-bum convened a meeting on Tuesday with the Ministries of Industry, Finance, and Foreign Affairs. Kim stressed that although swift negotiations are important, safeguarding South Korea's national interest remains the top priority and urged the ministries to approach tariff talks with that in mind. He noted that market reactions so far have been relatively calm, but called for close monitoring and support measures for sectors likely to be affected, including car makers and steel producers. Kim added that once National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak returns from the U.S., they will hold a joint meeting to discuss the next steps. Ri, who is on a 3-day visit to Washington, D.C., met with his American counterpart Marco Rubio on Monday local time. There, the South Korean delegation reiterated the need to arrange a summit between Presidents Lee and Trump as soon as possible to make progress on key issues, to which the U.S. side agreed. On tariffs, Washington expressed hopes for a close coordination to reach a deal before they kick in. On the same day, Seoul's top trade negotiator Yohan Gu, also in Washington, met with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Yaw called for lowering tariffs on major Korean exports, mainly automobiles and steel, which are currently subject to separate 25% and 50% duties. He also emphasized Seoul's commitment to bilateral cooperation on manufacturing, describing it as a way to achieve more balanced trade. Yaw and Lutnick are scheduled to continue their talks on Wednesday. Now, Lee's visit to Washington is set to conclude on Tuesday. More details of his trip are expected once he returns to Seoul. 송유진, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has been announcing tariff rates on a daily basis now, whether it's reciprocal tariffs by country or by product, such as autos and steel. Now, South Korean officials say there's room for negotiation, but where do we go from here? We have our Kim Do-yeon in the studio with us for more. Welcome, Do-yeon.
Thanks for having me.
So, Do-yeon, walk us through the South Korean-U.S. trading relationship at this moment in time.
Eunji, first, it hasn't been looking good for South Korea. From January to April, the United States imports from across the globe hit an all-time high, but imports from South Korea actually declined, causing Korea's ranking among U.S. import partners to fall by 3 places from 7th last year to 10th. That's according to the Korea International Trade Association. Take a listen to an expert explaining the situation.
Even among the top 10 import partners, only China and Korea saw a decline. In Korea's case, it's notable that key Korean export items are increasingly being replaced by those from countries like Vietnam, Mexico, and Taiwan.
We also have to keep in mind that many of the items that South Korea sells to the U.S. are subject to separate tariff rates. For example, we know autos will have 25% tariffs imposed under Section 232. Autos are more than 30% of South Korea's exports to the U.S. Chips and pharmaceuticals will also have their own tariff rates, and of course, there are also some of South Korea's strengths in the export market. And the White House has made it clear that these tariffs on specific items are not up for negotiation, saying South Korea is not likely to get its own lower tariff rates for these items.
So let's focus on autos because we have the number now. 25% could be big. How is South Korea faring?
Now, in terms of the competition, a 25% tariff is applied to all items so that playing field is still level against major competitors like Japan. Autos and auto parts are the #1 export items to the U.S. for Korea and Japan, but Mexico is a competitor that has an advantage over South Korea. Take a listen.
We should pay particular attention to Mexico. In the case of automobiles and auto parts, Mexico benefits from lower tariff rates under the USMCA, which puts Korea at a relative disadvantage in terms of price competitiveness. Moreover, Mexico's share of the U.S. import market for automobiles and parts has been expanding rapidly in recent years.
And in terms of pricing competition, currency is also something to look into, and that is why the U.S. has been monitoring the dollar exchange rate closely as it comes up with the tariff rates. First, take a listen to how this works.
Let's say a 10% tariff is imposed, but at the same time, the exchange rate rises by 10%. In that case, the price doesn't become 10% higher, even with the tariff, thanks to the weaker currency. It effectively stays at $1. That's why a weaker currency neutralizes the impact of tariffs. So we end up comparing how much the yen has weakened versus how much the won has weakened.
Now that is why South Korea and Japan are likely to enjoy better tariff rates than China. While the won and yen are decided according to the market trends, the Chinese yuan is not really decided in that way.
Right, now let's go back to the 25%. Of course, it's open to negotiation, but if autos, chips, and pharmaceuticals are getting their own tariff rates, what should South Korea be concerned about?
Eunji, there are 2 items that come to my mind for this. K-beauty products and ramen. These 2 items have been on the rise when it comes to exports to the U.S. In fact, South Korea ranks first in cosmetic exports to the U.S. and as we all know, bulldog noodles has been some sort of a phenomenon in the U.S. Now let's focus on the beauty products first. Many of the items popular in the U.S. are indie brands that are sold on Amazon. Of course, these are subject to the reciprocal tariffs. There are some that produce locally in the U.S., such as the biggest Korean OEM and ODM cosmetic companies, but that's a small portion. Also, big cosmetic brands are looking for ways to start local production.
In particular, major Korean cosmetics companies like Amor Pacific and LG don't have local manufacturing facilities in the U.S. right now, so they're considering options like acquiring existing plants through M&A, since building new factories on site isn't feasible in the immediate term.
On top of this, consumers are smart. There have been trends of people hoarding Korean sunblock before the tariff hit to survive the summer in the U.S. Now, as for the ramen industry, the two biggest players are facing different fates. Nongshim, the maker of Shinramen, localized production in the U.S. for all its supplies. Samyang, the maker of product, exports all from South Korea, so the company is closely monitoring the negotiation process.
All right, Toya, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
South Korea celebrated its first K-Defense Day on Tuesday, and marking the event, President Lee Jae-myung vowed to make more investments in the defense industry to make the country one of the leading global powerhouses in the field. Our presidential office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Celebrating the first K-Defense Day in the capital on Tuesday, the arms industry was put front and center, not only as a key to national defense for the country technically still at war, but also as the nation's future growth engine.
앞으로는 좀 더 많은 노력을 기울여서 투자하고 지원하고 관심을 기울여서 세계적인 방위 산업 강국으로 좀 나아갈 수 있게 하려고 합니다.
For that, President Lee Jae-myung laid out his vision to develop competitive weapons systems involving AI or unmanned robots to keep pace with the changing security dynamics, while calling for broader participation by defense firms, regardless of their size, rather than by a small group of large conglomerates. The South Korean leader also vowed to make efforts for intergovernmental security cooperation. Along with government officials, present at the meeting were some 100 representatives of defense firms, small and big alike, including Hanwha Aerospace, to pitch their ideas behind closed doors to help outline related policies.
Participants pointed out the difficulties of securing technology, building infrastructure, and assessing defense data, and urged the need to establish an integrated defense data system.
It was no coincidence that the president also called for creating a new control tower to nurture the nation's defense industry earlier in the morning at a cabinet meeting, also asking participants to review instituting a strategy meeting as a regular event to boost arms exports. Tuesday's discussion comes amid the growing recognition of arms exports, with demand on the rise due to the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, often emerging as a centerpiece for diplomacy with the US and the EU, among others. Upgrading technology on the battlefield has also been a topic, often revisited amid a dwindling population. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea's central bank has decided to keep its benchmark interest rate steady at 2.5% amid soaring housing prices and household debt. Our economic correspondent Moon Ji-young has the details.
As widely expected, South Korea's central bank has held its benchmark interest rate steady at 2.5%. The Bank of Korea announced the decision on Thursday following the fifth Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the year, taking a break from a rate-cutting cycle after a cut of 25 basis points in May.
The domestic economy is expected to experience continued low growth for some time, while inflation remains on a stable trajectory, and there is considerable uncertainty related to trade negotiations. However, given the significant rise in capital area housing prices and household debt, coupled with the need to assess recent debt measures, it was deemed appropriate to maintain the current policy rate.
He also highlighted that it is necessary to cool expectations for a rate cut to prevent a rapid increase in housing prices in the Greater Seoul area and to better manage household debt. According to one expert, housing prices have been rising, especially in the main capital area.
The rising inflation in apartment price, especially in the Seoul Gangnam area, which has been showing more than 10% year-over-year rate of increase, and that is, I think, almost the highest in almost 20 years, except for 2017, 2018.
In response, the The government last month implemented stricter mortgage regulations, capping mortgage loans for home purchases in the capital region and suspending home-backed loans for multi-homeowners. Notably, the rate freeze decision was unanimous. However, 4 out of 6 board members voiced the need for further rate cuts in the next 3 months, factoring in tariff negotiations. Regarding the future rate outlook, an expert said,
Though not yet disbursed, supplementary budget funds are expected to make an impact in August. This increases the likelihood of a rate cut at the August meeting.
Conversely, the other 2 members advocated for maintaining the rate, citing the record-high 2 percentage point key rate gap that currently exists between South Korea and the U.S. The central bank predicts consumption to gradually recover, driven by the implementation of the supplementary budget, as well as improving economic sentiment thanks to eased political uncertainty. Governor Lee said he will take into consideration the effects of the extra budget once fully implemented in August. Meanwhile, U.S. tariff impositions pose great uncertainty on export prospects. The central bank emphasized that the outcomes of trade talks, especially regarding reciprocal tariffs on South Korea and specific items like semiconductors, will critically shape the country's export and growth path. The Bank of Korea said it'll maintain its accommodative monetary policy stance, closely monitoring domestic and external conditions before deciding on the timing of further rate cuts. 문지영, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics unveiled the latest generation of its Galaxy Z series smartphones. At the Galaxy Unpacked 2025, the Korean company introduced its slimmest and lightest foldable phone to date. Our Lee Seung-jae takes a look.
The summer edition of Galaxy Unpacked 2025 was held in New York City on Wednesday, with expectations high over Samsung Electronics' latest releases. There, Samsung Electronics unveiled the latest generation of its Galaxy Z series smartphones, showcasing the company's slimmest and lightest foldable smartphones to date with their Galaxy Z Fold 7 and Galaxy Z Flip 7. Along with its new physical features, the company says the new smartphone comes with an upgraded camera and artificial intelligence capabilities.
Galaxy Z Fold 7 and Z Flip 7 represent the pinnacle of our innovation. Galaxy AI has become your very own human-like AI companion, elevating the way you connect, create, and live every single day.
Samsung says the Galaxy Z Fold 7 is the thinnest and lightest model in the latest Z series. The phone measures just 8.9 millimeters when folded and 4.2 millimeters when unfolded. It weighs just 215 grams, making it even lighter than the Galaxy S25 Ultra, launched in January. Despite a reduction in size and weight, the Galaxy Z Fold 7 features a 6.5-inch external display and an 8-inch main display, with the inner display 11% larger than the previous model. It's also equipped with a 20-megapixel wide-angle camera, with Samsung improving its AI capabilities by enhancing cooperation with external partners like Google. Meanwhile, the clamshell-style Galaxy Z Flip 7 upgraded its display with slightly larger screens than its previous model and a slimmer and lighter build. And for those at the event, it was a chance to see how Samsung Electronics continues to improve in the competitive mobile phone industry.
I was very excited to come here today and see the unpack of the new Galaxy Flip 7. I'm very surprised by how elegant it looks. It's very lightweight, it's pocketability, and I'm most impressed about AI Assistant. It is going to be very helpful in my everyday life.
Samsung also unveiled its latest Galaxy Watch 8. According to Samsung Electronics, the new Galaxy Fold and Flip models will officially launch worldwide on July 25th. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Former President Yoon Suk-yeol has been arrested for a second time. This is the first time in history that a former or current president of South Korea has been rearrested. Our Choi Soo-young reports.
Former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has been arrested again. It has been 124 days or about 4 months since the court cancelled his previous arrest on March 8th. On Wednesday, after a 6-hour, 40-minute hearing and more than 5 hours of review, a court decided to issue an arrest warrant or fears that he could destroy evidence. The special counsel team said Jung ordered the deletion of secret phone records and made a fake martial law statement, which he later threw away. It seems that the court agreed this could be considered evidence tampering. Last Sunday, the counsel team formally accused Jung of 5 major charges. Those charges are that, on December 3rd last year, Jung held a partial cabinet meeting to simulate approval for martial law, that he wrote a false martial law statement and later destroyed it, that he spread false information to foreign media, that he ordered the deletion of secure phone records, and that he used the Presidential Security Service to stop the police from arresting him. The special counsel team is now allowed to hold Jung in custody for up to 20 days for investigation. Jung is being held at Seoul Detention Center. All his presidential-level security has been revoked. He will undergo the same procedures as regular inmates and will be placed in a solidarity cell. There's no air conditioning and electric fans are restricted to limited hours. The investigation now shifts focus on foreign aggression crime charges. Jung is accused of trying to provoke North Korea by sending a drone to Pyongyang to justify declaring martial law. Unconfirmed testimony from military sources claim the president gave a direct order to send a drone into North Korea. However, due to military secrets laws, specific details have not yet been revealed. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
6 North Koreans rescued earlier this year in South Korean waters were safely repatriated. The Ministry of Unification confirmed their voluntary return to the north. Our correspondent Kim Jang-sil reports.
These rare photos show 6 North Korean fishermen making their journey home. Despite their small size, these photos show the end of a months-long journey after the fishermen were rescued from South Korean waters. For their return, the group traveled together in a single wooden boat in the East Sea, and at 8:56 a.m., they crossed the northern limit line. By 9:24 a.m., a North Korean vessel made contact with the boat, and both vessels began their journey back to the north. The 6 fishermen in their 30s and 40s were stranded in boats that drifted into the East and West Seas in March and May. Since direct communication between the two Koreas were severed in 2023, Seoul coordinated through the UNC to convey its message about the fishermen's return. While North Korea did not confirm directly, its actions spoke louder.
At the handover, a North Korean patrol boat was stationed at the designated point, and the vessel returned under its own power, completing the repatriation smoothly and safely.
The Ministry of Unification verified their voluntary wish to return with consent confirmed. Experts say Wednesday's repatriation reflects North Korea's ongoing attention to South Korea.
North Korea's response shows they're watching South Korea's peace efforts, and if the new government remains sincere, a positive response from the North may not be far off.
This isn't the first repatriation of its kind. Similar cases took place in 2017 when fishermen also expressed a strong desire to return to the north. Despite delays, officials emphasized that Wednesday's decision was driven by humanitarian concerns and respect for the individual's wishes. A ministry official expressed hope that better communication between the South and North could lead to smoother future repatriations. Kim Jang-sil, Arirang News.
Intense heat wave continues to grip South Korea. This week, the country saw daytime temperatures in some parts of the country reaching up to 40 degrees Celsius. Paju reached 40.1 degrees, while Gwangmyeong hit 40.2 degrees on Tuesday, marking the hottest day in early July since 1907, breaking a 118-year record. The scorching heat is expected to continue throughout next week, becoming more humid, with rain expected on Wednesday and Thursday. Vulnerable groups such as children and the elderly are advised to stay indoors and limit their outdoor activities. Though the extremely hot temperature is a pain for everyone, it becomes especially difficult for those in vulnerable areas. Our An Sung-jin has this report.
76-year-old Kim Ok-ja has lived here for decades, in a shanty town in Yeongdeung-pogu district, Seoul. Despite the sweltering heat wave and rain leaking through the walls in summer, she says she's thankful for what she has to survive the deadly summer.
I have been given this air conditioning system and a fan. Since a lot of us here are old people, officers would come out in the afternoon to make sure that we don't have any problems. During the summer, when it's hot, I'll also go to the shelter. It may look uncomfortable to other people, but I'm just thankful that I can get this much help.
South Korea is enduring one of its most punishing heat waves ever. The first 10 days of July this year marked the most intense in 118 years. And it is often the country's most vulnerable who are hit the hardest. Temperatures in Seoul are reaching up to 35 to 36 degrees Celsius this summer, but in these tiny cubicles, the heat and the cluttered space makes the heat and humidity even worse. That's why the local government provides various services, including this cooling fog system. In the face of rising temperatures, pockets of hope emerge. Though not all buildings can support the cooling fog system, for the buildings that do, it helps cool those sitting outside to escape the heat. The local government has ramped this up for this year, including adding additional air conditioning indoors and building facilities like this cooling shelter and warehouse that opened just a few weeks ago.
This space is made for the residents. Previously, we would just hand out provided necessities collectively, but now they can come and choose the items they need by themselves. And instead of waiting in line outside, they can rest inside here without sweating in the heat like today.
Most of these houses do not have proper bathrooms or places to shower, so during the summer, this community area is a lifesaver.
It's really convenient. I can't go to the market, and there's nothing to eat at home. Every time I come, they're so welcoming, and that makes me truly grateful. Honestly, my kids wouldn't do this for me these days.
I'm just thankful that this space is here for us.
The country runs a special summer emergency response program until the end of September, placing a special focus on protecting the vulnerable. However, as the streets still sizzle under the relentless sun, for the vulnerable residents living alone, summer becomes a question of survival. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
That is all we have for this weekend. Thank you for watching.